Hello students, welcome to your introduction class on storage area network. I am Sushmita J, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering. So I shall be your faculty for your subject SAN. So talking about today's class, let us have a quick walkthrough to your curriculum, the modules and what does the modules comprise of, what are the course outcomes, and then we'll also see what is the current demand for SAN, why storage area network, why should somebody know about storage area network. So talking about your curriculum, we will have 4 lectures in a week and the marks distribution is 60-40, and we also know in that 40 marks 30 will be your IA and 10 will be your assignment, and you have 5 modules. So giving you a quick description about each of the modules. So the very first module is your storage system. When we say storage area network, so the storage area network is guided by the storage system. Now, what does the storage system comprise of? The storage system comprise of the drive, that is the hard disk, but there are different terminologies that we'll be using. We will see what the hard disk is called in the data center. So the module 1 talks about how did storage area network evolve, what gave rise to storage area network, what was the need or demand for this technology. And we have many a times heard about the word data center. So what is this data center all about? What are the core components of the data center? What makes up a data center, and what is the guiding technology on the data center, and that technique is your RAID. R-A-I-D. We will look into the different levels and how an application can be, how do we evaluate the RAID levels, how do we decide which application should follow which RAID level. All that is what we would be discussing in your module 1. Module 2, we talk about storage networking technology and virtualization. We go a level deeper. First module we spoke about the core component, that is your drive and the technology on the drive. Now we talk about how are these components connected, how is the user getting the access. There should be some network. So what is this network? What is the network technology that is there? And here we use a high speed network, that is your fiber channel network. Now, for example, you have access to very huge data in the matter of seconds. So how are you able to access this huge data in a matter of seconds or minutes? It is because of the fiber channel network, which has a very high speed, which is in gigabytes, and what is the protocols that is used, what are the other components that is used that helps the networking technology. We will also look into the other techniques. Whenever we say about your SAN, there also comes another technology called as NAS, N-A-S, that is Network Attached Storage. So usually it is the evolution goes like DAS, NAS and SAN. DAS is DAS, Direct Attached Storage. NAS, NAS, Network Attached Storage. SAN, Storage Area Network. Now, what is your DAS? It is the storage is directly attached to the server. So there are some limitations, there are some advantages and disadvantages. Let me get it in deeper when we look into the modules. And SAN is a technique that is used for a dedicated file server or file system, and whereas SAN is a total where it differentiates the computation and the storage. That is the technique of your SAN. And how does virtualization help the process is what we will be looking to in your module 2. The next module that we have is about your backup, archival and replication. When we have a simple data of a GB or few, we will have the backup plans. Now, what about the big organizations which is holding so many customers' data? What about the organizations where the customer data is actually meaning the business or the dollar to them? So they should definitely have some backup technique. So what are the backup techniques? What is archival? Here you also learn to another concept, SAS, Content Attached Storage. So what is the importance of SAS? Why should we have a replication technology? And let me remind you, backup and replica are two different technologies. It is not the same. Backup, you just have the data, you do not have the environment. You will have to set up the environment. Whereas replica, you have the data, you have the required environment to execute your data. You only have to switch immediately. That is, whenever there is a failure, when it is a backup, you have the data, you have to set up the environment, then put in your data, and then is where you have to access it. A replica, once there is a failure, you immediately switch from one point to another. So all these techniques or methods that we discuss in this particular module mainly focuses on the data availability. How fast is my data available? If there is a failure, is the data availability taking days long or it is taking minutes long, seconds long, is what the methods and technologies here talk about. Now, for example, if I say the Google just failed, I mean, one of the servers which had your data happened to fail, you would get an access immediately to your data or to your account without the knowledge of the customer that the server has actually failed. So that is the replication technology, or that is the backup technology that Google has followed. So any technique that we discuss here, it depends upon the demand of the application, how important the data or the information is, and how vital the customers are to them. The next module that we have is about your cloud computing characteristics and benefits. Whenever we talk about your Google, or whenever we talk about your Drive and Amazon Cloud and all of that, we know there is a platform that is provided which is providing everything. It gives us the software, it gives us the storage, it gives us all the required things. It is just like a plug and play. We do not need anything on a personal system. The whole setup is available. We just have to pitch in and use. So, what was the stepping stone for this cloud computing? The stepping stone for cloud computing or any of the big technologies that you talk today is your SAN. Why is this subject so important? It is so important that you know the foundation of all the technologies that we have. Whether it is your cloud computing, your big data analytics, your data science that we are talking about, everything that has its stepping stone is your SAN. How? Now, I told you the cloud computing, you have everything readily available, whether it is the platform, the software, the data, the space, everything is available. But who is making it available? What is the technology that is making it available? That is your storage area network. That is one which gave rise to the concept of your cloud computing. Now, cloud computing is purely working on SAN, but cloud computing has added feathers that makes it even more. SAN purely talks about data handling and data storage, whereas cloud computing talks about you can do much more just then reading and writing your data. So that is about your cloud computing. So you will be studying about what are the various phases and what are the different cloud models. We have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. So when do we use a public cloud? When do we use a private cloud? What is a hybrid cloud? What are the deployment models? All that is what we would be addressing in your module 4. The last module that we have is about your module 5, securing and managing the storage infrastructure. We started the storage area network where we spoke about the drive, we spoke about how do we network it, we spoke about what are the other added benefits to it, what is the replication, the backup technology. Finally, we have to see how do we secure all this and what is the best efficient way of managing it, what are the architectures that is followed, what are the best topologies that is followed. And when I talk about securing, I think you've already studied in one of your subjects, that is cyber security. So few concepts, few algorithms that you have studied there is what will also be used here again. So it talks about the network security. So how do you secure your data? What are the various measures that is taken? What is the algorithm? What is the encryption or decryption technologies that is used is what we will be addressing to your module 5. So this was a quick walkthrough to the 5 modules. Now what happens now? Why should you take this course here? I will come up to the job opportunities later. What if this same course is taken outside? You are offered here as an elective. Now if this was not the case, if the university did not have a subject SAN, and for example you had to take this course in some private organization, then this would be the cost of the same course with the same syllabus that you study. And this course certification is going to earn you many jobs. I'll show you about the jobs. So this is the amount, that is almost 50% of your academic fee is where you had to give to this course alone, and it is the exact syllabus. You can go match up to your syllabus that is there. This is the exact syllabus. In fact, you are studying a bit more, more than what is prescribed, what is shown here. Now the other thing that I have to tell is, in whole of your VTU curriculum, probably this is the only subject that is company specified and company prescribed. You can see here it is from EMC Square. Now that is called as Dell EMC. Previously, EMC Square was a company that was known for data technology. They were also called as data giants. So this is the only subject which is prescribed by a company, and the syllabus is designed by a company, and the textbook that you use is also published and written by the company and the company authorities. So this is what you study is totally an industry oriented subject is what I can tell. So these are the 2 textbooks that is prescribed, and majority of the concepts and the syllabus is completed or covered in your textbook 1. The textbook 2 is only a part of your syllabus, that is module 4. 6 topics of your module 4 is covered in the second textbook, and the second textbook, the online copy is not available. The first textbook, the soft copy, is available. I'll just pass it on to you over the mail. So these are the textbooks that is a part of your curriculum. Now what are the course outcomes? You would have seen to this COs, CO1, CO2, most of the time that is your IA question paper. We would be giving you a question and we will be mapping it to a CO. So what is expected after you finish the course? You will be able to illustrate the concepts of the data center, cloud computing and virtualization. You will be able to interpret what is SAN, NAS and SAS. Probably I told that in your briefing up of the modules. SAN is storage area network, NAS is network attached storage, SAS is content at rest storage. And then CO3 talks about the illustration of your backup and replication technologies. So you will learn through all the various techniques and methods that is there, so you will be able to illustrate the same, and you will also be able to illustrate the techniques of managing and securing the storage infrastructure, and you will also be able to compare different rate levels and the components and the techniques that is used in your SAN. So this is about your course outcomes. So all this time is where we have discussed about your curriculum, that is your syllabus and your outcomes. Now let us come to some interesting part, that is where most of you are curious about, and most of you would want to know whether this is going to fetch me any job. Just like any other skill set, now in your resume probably you will have your skill sets. You put up Java, you put up your skill set as Python, and similarly you can also put this skill set as SAN or ISM. Now what is this ISM? You can see the name of the textbook here, that is Information System and Management. This is actually a certified course from EMC, that is now the Dell EMC. You have different levels, ISM V1, ISM V2 and so on, and you can also take the certification course. I mean, once you tell you have completed this course under the VTU, you can directly take up the exam. It is the same syllabus and it is the same book that is prescribed even for this certification course. So once that is completed, that becomes like an add-on. But irrespective of that, you can be putting ISM as one of these skill sets in your resume. And if I have to say about the success stories, having that put, one of my student was recruited in Dell EMC and she worked there as the senior data engineer, and now she is actually doing her masters in data science, and where she wants to be a data architect. So that is a pathway that you can have towards your career, having this subject learned. Now getting back to some of the job opportunities, so these are some of the job opportunities, that is data center project manager, data center operation analyst, data center support L3. So this is what I was talking about. So this will be the beginner level. Data center support is what they take, and then you will be promoted to data engineer, then data specialist, analyst, and then the project manager. And finally, if you have a 10 years and plus experience, and if you are very well versed in your knowledge, then you would get a job of a cloud architect when they are years together in that field. So these are some of the job opportunities. There are many more, but I have listed a few. The next thing, let us see why you should be studying about the technology SAN. What is the purpose? Why should you know about SAN? Now let me ask you a few questions before we get into the discussion of why. So the very first question I have is, what bothers to you more? Is it losing the gadget or is it losing the data on the gadget? Okay, the next question I have is, where do you prefer storing all your images? Is it on your personal laptop, your phone, or on Google Photos? The next question I have is, where do you prefer storing all your files? Again, it is on your gadget like laptop or smartphones, or is it in the Google Drive? Now let me say, if your answer for the previous question is you would feel bad losing your gadget, you prefer storing it on your laptop and smartphones for your images or files, I would probably tell that you do not know the importance of data at all. The data that you hold is not very important or vital to you. But for the person for whom the data is very important or vital and he needs access at an instance of time that he wish for, then that is the other would be the preferable ones. So a person would be bothered when he loses the data on the gadget rather than the gadget, and would prefer to store the images on Google Photos, would prefer to store the files in Google Drives. So anytime, any instance you want a particular file or image, you would get it very quickly and more efficiently. It is very well sorted, the search is faster, so all that is available on the other side. Now we have a very fancy applications like Google Photos, Google Drive, but where is all the storage happening? Where is your data going and sitting? As a customer, you are not aware where it is happening, how it is happening, how far is your data, but somewhere at least your data should sit permanently. It is not available on your laptop or on your smartphone. Over the network you are accessing it, but over the network, for you to access the data should be available somewhere persistently. So where is that data available persistently is the answer for your subject SAN. That tells you how to store the data persistently, and as we discussed over the briefing of your modules, so it talks about your drive that is going to hold the data, that network that is going to give you your data at a very high speed and in the instance of time. I will here show you some of the statistics of the social media. I have taken the top 5 and this is of the current year 2020. The top one stands is the Facebook, where it has 2.4 billion monthly active users and 1.6 billion daily active users. And then YouTube, which has 1.9 billion monthly active users and daily 149 million users, and there is video views, 5 billion video views that happen on a daily basis. And then we have at the third position, it is your WhatsApp, where we have 1.5 billion users on monthly basis and daily 1 billion active users, and there is around 60 billion messages every day. And fourth is the Instagram, where we have monthly 1 billion active users and daily 600 million users and 95 million posts every day. And fifth is the Twitter, so 330 million monthly, 134 million daily, and 140 million tweets daily. So every time I was talking about the social media, there is something that I was stressing about. It could be your 140 million tweets, 95 million posts, 60 billion messages, and 5 billion video views, and then so much of time that is spent on the Facebook. Now all of these applications, you do not have it stored. The data of this application is not taking, the data is not stored locally on your device. Then this millions and billions of posts and all that data that is created, that is stored somewhere, that is stored in your data center. So how is that data center managed? What happens in the data center? And what is the technology that it is guiding is your storage area network, where the storage is differentiated from the computation. So you are accessing it, the computation, when I say, is you open the application, you go for a particular post, you log in to as an authorized user. All that is a part of the computation that happens, but you access for a particular data that is not available on your system, that is there or elsewhere on a remote system or in a remote location, and that access of the data, you get it in fraction of seconds. That is the power of your storage area network and the fiber channel technology that it is guided with. Now, what is the demand of data that is happening? So the data is, and or the information is in this virtuous cycle, where there is a creator creating the information, and that is loaded to a server or the data storage, and again there is another user who uses that information or who demands for that information. Now any content, you just Google on that content, you get millions of posts on that particular content. There are millions of creators, so there are creators creating the information, and there is an other set of users demanding for the information. So this goes on. So they create, I mean, if I have to just take one of the application, if I just take it as YouTube, so there is a creator who creates and uploads it. There are other millions of users who is creating, and there are billions of users who is accessing to that particular information. So this is the cycle that gave rise to the technology, or the thought of separating the computation and the storage. Now, what is data? I think there are many a times we are using the word data. Now, let us see what is data. Data could be any raw fact. It could be a letter, it could be an image, it could be a video. Everything is a data. A piece of paper, you just write 4 letters, that is also a data. But what is a digital data? A data which is converted to the form of zeros and ones, and this data could fall into any of these varieties. It could be a document, it could be a photo, or it could be a image. Now, what is that giving rise to the growth of the digital data? Now, if I have to tell now, almost now the various technologies that we are having, or take it data analysis, big data, or data science, the booming technologies that we hear, all of these technologies have come into picture just because of the digital data explosion, is what we call. There is a huge data that is created, and how is that huge growth of digital data that has happened? It is because of these three facts. The first one is increase in data processing capabilities. Now, if I have to compare the processing of today, and if I have to compare the processing of a decade of 5 years back, it was totally, the scenario was different. Now, if I have I told a data could be a sheet of paper with something written is also a data. Now that hard copy of the data, if I had to digitize it, it was a very huge process by itself. We had devices like scanner, which we had to scan it and have a high quality. We had to take the exact thing, and that is how the data was digitized. But today it is not so. I think everybody is able to digitize it. You're able to do it. I think you have been doing it all through the semester, where you just write your IA, you write your records, you write all of it, and just open your cam scanner, convert it into PDF, convert it into image, whatever format you want. So data processing is become very easy, and whether it is the system that we have or the softwares that are coming up to processing it is increased with much more capabilities. And the second reason is the lower cost of digital storage. If you, again, if I have to compare day old and today, a cost of a GB was very high then, and it is very cheap now. For me to, I mean, 1 GB of data, if I have to just buy a pen drive, 1 GB pen drive, I am able to get it in 150 or 200. I would be getting rather a 4 GB pen drive, and that is why the cost is lowered, and affordable and faster communication technologies. Now we have, previously we had cyber cafes with the slow internet, and it was on an hourly basis. I mean, the cyber cafe, just to open a mail, I don't know if your era has even witnessed it. If you had it during your school projects, with the slow internet, where opening a mail, uploading a particular document was really a big task, and now we are doing it at our fingertips. So that is how the affordable or faster communication technology is become. So these are some of the reasons which is giving rise to the data explosion or the digital data. Now, when there is a raise or when there is a demand in the digital data, this data should be stored somewhere, and it should be efficiently accessed. I again repeat, that is where the technology SAN remains. Now, a quick 2 words about the types of data that we have: structured and unstructured data. Now, what is a structured data? Any data that can fit into row and column is your structured data. Any data that cannot fit into your row and column is your unstructured data. and managing the data is easier if it is structured, and it is difficult if it is unstructured. But unfortunately, 80% of the data is unstructured and only 20% of the data is structured. So that is how difficult it is to manage the storage area network. If we feel that storing and retrieving the data is very easy, it is not that easy that it represents. And the other thing that we have to have the clarity about, data and information is two different things. Data is something that is raw. Information is something where you can derive out of that data. Or if I have to put it in a better way, data that is very well represented would be your information, or something that makes it more meaningful, or if there is something that I could derive out of it. Now, for example, I have a data is I have the person's name and I have a person's date of birth. Now, if I would be able to calculate the age of that person, that becomes the information for me. Or if I have to give you an example of your daily business that you do, now whenever your IA is announced, you have your scripts written, scanned and uploaded. When I just look into that, that just looks to me as a data. That becomes an information when it is well represented, when I know who is the student. Probably we attach the front sheet that you attach where you specify your name, USN, the subject. That becomes the information. So when a data is presented in a more meaningful way, there could be something that is derived out of it, becomes the information. So when I know whose script it is and who has written it and what time it was submitted, and then again the marking, all this becomes the information that could be derived out of the data. The last thing is, any data that is created definitely should be stored, and if that isn't stored, that is there was no point creating it. The same thing applies with the information. If I am not able to derive any information out of the data gets useless and it is just meaningless. Now, if you're not attaching the front sheet, I don't know whose script it is, I don't know who has written it, I don't know the USN, then there is no point. Probably I would just discard evaluating that script. It just becomes useless. So when the data is not represented and there is no information that can be derived, the data gets meaningless and useless. The same thing when the data is created and the data is not stored, either locally, globally, in a pen drive, in a hard disk, in a CD, some kind or somewhere the data needs to be stored. That is when it adds value to that data. So how well this data could be stored, accessed and managed in a separate remote location, and how do we differentiate the access, the storage from the computation, is what it all talks about your storage area network.